안녕하세요. 아이비셉트 영어 강사 박나나입니다. So today we will go over IB English A Language and Literature, and we will be covering terms and techniques from visual sources for images and advertisement. Alright, so we'll begin with defining what advertisement is. So what is advertisement? Advertisement is a public communication that usually markets a product, brand, or organization, or even an idea. It is a very wide umbrella that IB really loves incorporating into Paper 1 and IOs. And within this umbrella, there are several different types of advertisements, and this can include campaigns, which could be political, recruitment, military, used also for corporate, charity appeals, and brand advertisement, which is your usual advertisements that you see in magazines and in day-to-day life. So a major component of modern advertising is images, and this is because images can help build a visual narrative, and this is more effective to persuade its audience. And so for IB Paper 1, I believe that we will be evaluating static advertisements, and that includes magazines, newspapers, posters, and websites. But take note that IOs can also include video advertisements, TV advertisements, radio advertisements, and so on. All right. And when we are evaluating advertisements, we will be looking at composition and representation first. So first, what is gaze? Gaze refers to where the figure or the subject in the advertisement is looking at. So if you see here, this is a very famous advertisement from 1916. It's "We Want You," the military advertisement that went very popular, and that is because the gaze of Uncle Sam is looking directly at the audience. And this is where we move on to demand. Demand is, like I said, it's just basically a term that is used when a figure in the image is gazing directly out of the page. As you see Uncle Sam here. And this establishes a connection between the subject and the audience, and it looks like the subject is referring to the audience directly, and it is used to be more impactful, and that is why this image coupled with "I want you" bolded is so effective, and it was so popular. Offer is when a figure gazes at not the audience, but at some other object in the page. So if you see this dog here, it gazes down at the puppy. It says us, them, and it connotes a certain type of mood, or it communicates a certain idea. It encourages us to look at that object and follow the gaze of the subject, almost creating an invisible vector. So in terms of salience, it refers to focal points. The elements in the image which stands out and attracts or grabs your attention is usually referred to as a focal point. And like this image here, there's a straight row of pears with an apple at the end. And the apple just grabs your attention because of its color and the way it contrasts with the rest of the image. This focal point or salience could be built through placement, color, size, focus, and distance. As you can see here, it's not only color that builds salience, it's also the way it is in a straight line, and also the fact that the color of the pear blends in with the background brown color, while red is unlike anything else in this image. So as I mentioned before, I mentioned vector. So what is vector? A line that leads your eye from one element to another. So this vector or a line can be either an invisible line or a visible one. So usually vectors are built off either by pointing fingers or extended arms, or even objects like bridges, or a pole, or anything that creates certain lines visually. And this is done very particularly in advertisements, so I would always make sure to see if there are any odd lines or any type of object that makes your gaze follow a certain pathway. Invisible lines usually refer to the direction of your gaze from a represented person or subject's eyes to another one. So like I said before, in this picture, this dog's gaze is looking right down, and that would be considered as a vector or an invisible line. So like I said, vectors or colors or salients all create reading pathways. What is reading pathways? It's a path that moves from the most salient, so from the most main or the focal point, to the least salient matters. In other words, it's the movement of the audience's gaze from one subject or text to another in an image or in an advertisement. And it's influenced by vectors, salience, gaze, colors, etc. As you can see in this advertisement, you can see that it's the text first, and you see a huge image of the mouse, and then you go up all the way down, following the trailing words. Here's another more major example of an advertisement. It's where all these vectors, the red lines, lead to the center, which is the marketing of the product. And this being in the center is also very significant because it's showing that nothing else in the image matters except for their brand, except for their product. And we will get into the centrality. So like the advertisement I was showing before, images that have subjects in the center, it usually signals that it is the nucleus of the advertisement, meaning that it is the most important. Even if you don't look at anywhere else in the advertisement, it wants to accomplish the aim that the audience will at least look at the center, which can be their brand, idea, or motto, and walk away. So that is the only thing that they will remember. So another advertisement that I pulled is from Coca-Cola. Like the advertisement in the front, there are vectors, there are small lines leading to the middle. This white, really big Coke shape contrasts with the red, and it grabs your attention immediately. And their advertisement line or their motto or their text is placed in the center, showing that what they want their audience to see first is this text, or at least this Coke bottle, to advertise their brand. So with this, we have foreground, middle ground, and background. So what is foreground? Foreground is whatever that takes in the very front. So if this was a landscape, it would be something that is the closest to you. Middle ground is somewhat, like it says, middle, but it is still important enough to be seen. And it usually supports what's in the foreground. Background is usually not very important, still kind of contributing to the advertisement by color or by a backdrop that kind of pulls the advertisement together. So for example, this is used a lot in posters. So in a lot of movie posters, what's the most important? It is the movie title. And that's why it's usually in the foreground of these posters. And they usually place the main characters in the foreground as well. They put sub-characters or other ideas or other members of the story in the middle ground that helps serve the main character. And as you can see, the background is usually the setting. Where is the movie starting? Where is the movie filmed at? It's, for example, for the Avengers, it's the space, and so is Star Wars. So you can kind of play around with foreground, middle ground, and background with posters, even in certain images for magazines. And you can usually say that subjects that appear in the foreground is the most or more important than others in the background. So in terms of images, the angle that the image is shot in is usually very important. So low angle, as you can see, is when viewers are located below the subject of the picture. So as you can see, this Joker, it's a low angle shot. It usually evokes feelings of powerlessness or kind of fear as we are placed beneath them, while a high angle like this one, a viewer feels a sense of power, or it feels divine-like when we are looking down. A straight angle where we directly meet the eye of the subjects usually show no power differences or no power dynamics, and it's usually used in advertisements a lot to build that relationship with the audience where we are on the same level, and where we are kind of being engaged in a conversation with the subjects. So continuing the positioning of elements, we see a close-up shot. During images or ads, close-up shots are kind of utilized in a way to show the expressions of the face or any facial structure that they may be commenting on. For example, this All Day Fresh advertisement is a toothpaste advertisement. So they are doing a close-up shot of this woman to kind of bring focus to her pearly whites. As she is smiling very wide, we can see, oh, her teeth are very white, and this is achieved by brushing with their brand. And it keeps the subject in sharp focus most of the time, and it's usually used in cosmetics, medical, or even insurance campaigns. But it's a very popular shot that all advertisements use time to time. So I think it's a good idea to bring this up. Overhead shots is more rare for advertisements, but it is used for a lot of TV advertisements, and this is where we see a bird's eye view. And usually when we see things bird's eye view, we kind of feel like we have an unbiased perspective of the scene, or if it's a busy event or whatnot, we can see everything. So it has an element of omniscience where we kind of evaluate everything that is going on. And a rule of thirds is very important for images too, because it's a composition where it utilizes a lot of space, a lot of empty space. So 2/3 of the image will be blank like this, while a subject will be either located on the left or right. And this helps direct the gaze again to the subject, to the main focal point of the image. And it's used to really emphasize the subject's presence. In terms of aesthetics and imagery, we have lighting. So lighting can be used in terms or very creatively. In addition to composition, it almost enhances the role that composition has, So lighting, it's the deliberate use of light to achieve practical or aesthetic effects. For example, we have natural light, soft light, or even studio lighting. So in terms of natural light, that would give off a sense of kind of down to earth, happiness or coziness or childhood, while studio lighting, on the other hand, would be kind of very fashionable or very almost human made. But studio lighting is often used for makeup brands again, cosmetic or fashion brands, or anything that really markets brands. On the other hand, soft light can be used a lot when advertisements want to convey a certain romance or add a layer of a dreamlike essence to their advertisements. It is used usually a lot for any advertisements that includes childhood or babies, or even like any cosmetics that want to deliver the feeling of soft Hollywood, or something that is nostalgic. Colored lights kind of go hand in hand with color theory. So any colored lights that are usually used in a very dramatic way, where, for example, if you see this image here, it is a man that is covered in red lighting. In color theory, red is usually represented as anger or passion, and in this case, he is performing very passionately in the rain of confetti, and that this image can be enhanced by the color light. And we will touch on the colored lights in a bit while we go to shadows. So where there is light, there are shadows. And it's usually, they use light to achieve certain shadows and the use of negative space for certain advertisements. I think this is a very beautiful advertisement that makes use of shadows. So when you see here, it's a bunch of stakes that are embedded into the ad board. And at night, it creates a certain shadow to reveal a Dracula or a vampire. And this, I think, is very smart because the image kind of goes hand to hand with the theme of the TV show. And Draculas usually come out at night, and it kind of goes hand in hand with color theory as well as shadows or the color black usually ties to evil, fear, or concealment, which in this case, I feel like it qualifies for all. And as I said before, negative space is also very popular. It's when the space around and between the subject of image is used. So for example, this is the most recent movie that came out a few months ago, and it's called The Lobster, but this poster was very, very popular at the time it came out because it makes excellent use of negative space. It helps really outline and emphasize the visual element, which is here, the subject or the main character. And it also kind of mentions, or it kind of connotes a certain emptiness, at least in this poster. What is the subject missing, and what is this outline signifying? Another one that uses shadows, I believe, is this one. This is kind of a combination of both. It's a campaign actually to use less light or less electricity so we can support sustainable goals. And its motto is save electricity, save a life. And when you see the shadow here, the light is the focal point, obviously, as it creates a circle in the middle. And it highlights the shadow. And while you see that it is a hand, you can also kind of see that it is shaped as an animal, which goes perfectly with our motto. And this is another way to kind of utilize both shadows, negative space, color theory, in order to have such a convincing campaign or advertisement. So like I said before, color theory is very often used in advertisements. The primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, they are very basic colors, but they are, you shouldn't think that primary colors are just simple. Usually primary colors comes with a sense of purity in terms of its saturation, and it has beauty in simplicity where it creates a certain enthusiasm and a colorway that kind of evokes excitement. Like you see in this Pepsi, it's very simple. It actually only uses the primary colors except for the shadow and the white, which the yellow helps emphasize Pepsi, and the red brings your eyes to its logo, its branding logo. So you can say the brand is the focal point, and you can see its market product through the background color. And we also have complementary colors, which is usually, if you see on the color wheel here, it is complementary colors are primary colors that are opposite of each other. So complementary colors would be, the main ones at least, are red, green, it is purple and yellow, and blue and orange. So it creates a high contrast when they are used together, and this can be either very bright red greens and purple and yellows, or it can be a muted purple, very bright yellow, and it can vary in saturation and hues. But when they are used together, nonetheless, the hue, saturation, whatnot, it creates a dynamic and a vibrant look to the advertisement. So for example, this one is, it's kind of a very soft olive green watercolor background. But because the green is very soft and it contrasts so well with the red, it highlights their product, which is Revlon's dark reddish lip color that I believe was used by Marilyn Monroe at the time. And that is why I believe that they chose such a soft color. And I feel like using watercolor effect to kind of soften the saturation of the color also really helped the red pop. So as I said, intensity and saturation. What is saturation? It is the purity of the color. So when you see a color that is very close to primary colors, or it's very bright, or neon colors, that is high saturation, while pastels, watercolor colors can be referred to low saturation. One very cool or commonly used effect is acrylic or watercolor. So acrylic paints are usually express color in its purest form, where it's very, very saturated, while watercolor kind of mutes down and it needs a lot of layers for the color to show. So I feel like it's easier for you to pair acrylic versus watercolor metaphor to saturation, so you might remember it better. And we have warm and cold colors. So you see here on the color wheel, this is all the cool colors. It's usually blue, green, violet, and the warm colors, which is red, orange, and yellow. So hot colors or warm colors are usually used to show excitement, happiness, anger, or something that is very positive or a very strong emotional outlook. While cool colors usually, like blues, are used for sadness, green is for peace, or purple, it kind of creates a harmony. And each color usually, or hue, or even a tint of any of these colors can have a symbolic meaning behind. So I've listed a few. Like I've said before, red, usually action, passionate, anger. It's usually masculine. And it's also, red lighting, for example, can also alert danger or fear, or almost like a warning that something is wrong. While yellow is usually warmth, like a fireplace or light, cheerfulness, joy, and lightheartedness, usually used in emojis or smiley faces. Blue is usually used for coolness, whether that is temperature-wise or in terms of style, calmness, wisdom, and it's almost like a new starting point. Usually blues are also used in a lab setting or in medical settings a lot due to the idea that blue is kind of sterile. It gives off a sterile environment or a clean environment. Green can be usually emotionally referred to greed, jealousy, disgust, sickness. But on the other hand, it can also refer to money, being eco-friendly, being sustainable, and it's usually used in those two ends. Black, like I've mentioned before, usually rooted in the meanings of evil, mysteriousness, concealment, and usually give fear or power. While white is the opposite. It shows purity, innocence, timelessness, and almost mystical. So continuing aesthetics and imagery, we have symbol, icon, and logo. I know these three can be kind of confusing, but this is how I would remember it. So for example, symbol is a letter or sign or image which is used to represent an abstract concept. So this, a fist, does not literally mean a fist. It stands for something else. It's usually used in a lot of campaigns or in a lot of revolutionary movements. Recently used in the Black Lives Matters movement. It's something, this image, which is a symbol, is used to represent an idea, which is in this case equality, or an organization or a movement that believes a certain concept, in which case is equal rights for all. Icon is an image that resembles what it is supposed to represent. So this, different from symbol, it should actually represent the image that it is showing. So for example, this envelope should be referring to email. Used a lot in your desktops. And this is a call center. This is usually representing a setting. It all is kind of, the definition or what it stands for is very two-dimensional. It refers to exactly what it shows to represent, and there is no symbolic meaning behind it. Logos are usually designed for brands or organizations. And this is something that you guys are probably very familiar with. It's used in everyday life. It can be textual or it can be just pure design, like the Nike swoosh. It's an image where the audience looks at it and you immediately remember the organization that stands behind that logo. All right, so that was it for this class. We've covered a lot in terms of visual resources. So next class, we will review how these visual resources can connect to the advertisement's themes, which is problem and benefit, slogan and copy, association, testimonial, advertising claims, which also includes a subsection of mottos, persuasion, and rhetorical devices. So we will kind of learn next class how to tie these visual resources and techniques with the textual in order to kind of see how advertisements really go after their goal of persuading the audience to either buy their product or remember their brand. All right, that was the end of the lesson. Thank you for listening.